Welcome, everybody. Um, as I said in my email earlier today, I am heartbroken that Patrick Duhaney is moving to become the city manager of Virginia Beach, not because I wish ill will to Virginia Beach. I'm happy for them. They have a tremendous leader coming their way, but I'm sad for us. From the moment he came in under difficult circumstances in the aftermath of Kyle Plush and in improving our 911 professionalism and response to incredible servant leadership, personal sacrifice through the trifecta of crises of the last 6 months. His experience and wisdom far exceeds his age, and his talents are unparalleled. There are so many stories of his servant leadership. We could be here for hours. Let me just tell you one, at least for now, and there'll be more to tell over the next several weeks. But most people don't know this, but in January, not February, not March, in January, unbeknownst to me, the city manager, Patrick Duhaney, had our procurement officers start calling China from midnight to 8 in the morning to stock up on PPEs, because he knew that could become critical way before the pandemic was widely thought about here in the United States. And that's the kind of leader that we have in Patrick and benefited from during these incredibly difficult times. And I also think it's worth mentioning that this is a man who served in the military in incredibly stressful situations on behalf of our country before he was a U.S. citizen. Before he was a U.S. citizen. And had served in Iraq and Afghanistan and only became an American citizen after his military service. And I've asked him, as we've dealt with some pretty tough times, how he manages to get through it all. And he points out that he's seen worse. He's seen worse. I really mean it when I say that I have never worked with a manager who has been as effective as Patrick. And I am absolutely convinced that he will continue to shine and outshine the rest of us for decades to come. And I know that his continued service to our country will be exemplary. I'm going to ask Patrick to say a few words, right? That's the order, right? And then Paula, who will become acting city manager, and I appreciate Jan Michelle Kearney being here, our great city council person, and her support for Paula as acting, as well as at least 7 members of city council, and deeply appreciate that, which will be a vote tomorrow at council, first on the agenda. I have known and worked with Paula for years, and Patrick, as you probably saw from the emails, had her in line to become acting city manager, and I wholeheartedly support that. I first got to know Paula when she was a student of mine at University of Cincinnati Law School, and I was a professor, and that I was doing adjunct teaching at the same time that I was starting the Innocence Project at UC Law School. And pretty sure she got an A or A plus. I don't forget if we gave pluses or not, but I knew immediately she was brilliant, and I also knew that she was running, I think, the Women's Law Journal, was very well known on campus as being an activist, and it was clear she was going to take this city by storm. And that storm was going to be about social justice and improving the lot of those who have been marginalized and discriminated against historically, and helping this city, community, and country live up to its ideals of equal opportunity. And her own story, which I hope she will share with you today, involves overcoming adversity, and today and the next couple of weeks will break new ground for Cincinnati as the second woman to hold the position of acting city manager and the first Asian American to do so. And there'll be many more things to say and to hear from as it relates to Paula, but I also want to make today about Patrick. And so with no further ado, Patrick.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to thank the mayor and council for giving me the opportunity to serve as city manager. I think it's probably been the proudest, most humblest opportunity that I've ever received in my life. In particular, I'd like to thank Mayor John Cranley for taking a chance with me. You know, I think how we came together was in a turbulent times. You know, I think it was around April 21st, shortly after the death of Kyle Plush, you know, and the city, a fabric and the city's soul got ripped out during that moment of time, you know, and it was a very difficult and sensitive situation for the city to traverse, and especially for the Plush family. And that was a tremendous task, Mayor, to trust me to help us navigate through. And I thank you for your steadfast encouragement and guidance throughout those things. I think for the past 6 months, you and I have a running joke whenever we meet for our weekly debriefs, and we say, the only thing left for us is space aliens. You know, to think about the different things that we've traversed just in our short time together is incomprehensible. And I think if you wrote a book and called it a biography, people would think it's a fiction. They wouldn't believe it, you know. And I think these past several weeks, we've gotten so close, you know, to bring the city through the pandemic, the budget issues, and the social unrest. You know, just the 3 or 4 nights we spent out with the police department, ensuring that things went as smooth as possible and as gracefully as possible, you know, really just kind of showed me a testament of your hands-on leadership, you know. And again, the budget process we went through, people may think we've got a little bit too close, you know, but again, I think I truly appreciate you challenging me and questioning me, and I think I became a better leader under your stewardship. To council, appreciate the checks and balances. The checks and balances, always holding us accountable, always asking us the tough questions, helped to make sure I became a really good city manager, and to make sure that I focus on engagement and transparency to the utmost extent possible. To the city employees, penning that letter that I sent over to the city employees, letting them know I resigned, was probably one of the hardest things in my life. I've been with the city for a long time. I grew up here at the city. I started with the city as a admin specialist, left the city one time and came back to the city. A lot of these city employees are my family. I went through births of new children, funerals, notices that individuals having cancer, deaths. They've been through with me when I had my first child. They helped me traverse difficult times when I was first found out that my son was autistic, to kind of come to grips with that and still keep some hope in my life, you know. And I think the thing that most people don't realize about city service is that it's one of the rare jobs where you still get in it and you're here for a long time. I think most of the employees, they get in and they want to get in for their 30-year career. And you build a certain kind of kinship and bond that's unlike working in the private sector because the longevity associated with these jobs. And again, I am incredibly humbled by their dedication to the city, their ability to wake up in the middle of the night for a flood, for a shooting, for a landslide, and do everything in their powers to ensure that Cincinnatians' lives are not impacted. I think all the gains that the mayor, council, and I have been able to make in these past several years is on the backs and the shoulders of those city employees. They make us look good, and they make this job incredibly easy. For Paula and I known each other for probably about 9 years now. I first met Paula outside of the city. I left the city, I think, around 2011 for about a 2.5-year stint to go work for the local initiative support corporation. And one of my first tasks there was to start to do economic development lending. And I had no idea how to do a loan or fix or set up a deal or do any kind of real estate economic transaction. And the first person I worked with was Paula, and Liz was supposed to fund a project with Port Authority at the time when Paula was there. And I could probably honestly say Paula wrote that loan for me that I turned into my company to get through, So Paula and I have always had a very trusting, transparent, and vulnerable relationship. I've always joked with her and said she's a better administrator than a lawyer. So in 2018, when I had to name my successors, I had no hesitation naming Paula as somebody to take over the seat in my absence. I trust her explicitly. I feel like she has a great heart, great moral conviction, and just a great intuition as it relates to how to solve problems, whether it's an economic development deal or a SOAR-related issue at MSD. She just has a good head on her shoulders for those kind of things. And I wish you nothing but the best, Paula, and I'm trusting you with my staff and my mayor and council. Please do a good job.
Good afternoon. I do want to start by saying how much I will miss Patrick. Patrick has been an incredible and compassionate colleague and boss, and there are just so many of us here at City Hall and in the city workforce that are very sad to see him go. And I'm one of them. He has been a great friend and a person that I have come to count on, and so I'm going to miss him very much. And I thank him for this opportunity. I want to thank the mayor for his confidence in me, and Councilmember Kearney for being here, and the many council members who have expressed their support. This is very exciting, very humbling. I will say just a few words about my story, which I have not shared that often. I grew up in rural Kentucky. My family struggled, like many Cincinnati families struggle. My father was in the military. He's a veteran. My mom is a Japanese immigrant. And as far back as I can remember, I aspired to a career in public service. I have always been deeply committed to justice and equality, and those are the reasons that I went to law school. I went to law school here in Cincinnati. I was a human rights fellow. I was the editor of the Human Rights Quarterly, and I had a lot of fun exercising my First Amendment rights in law school. And I was very excited to be able to join the city workforce in 2006 as a city lawyer. And I know that from firsthand from working here, that government can have a positive difference in people's lives, and I'm committed to continuing to do that work. I am incredibly honored to be entrusted with this great responsibility. I care deeply for our city workers and for our citizens. I do think over the past few months, our citizens have recognized how important government is in the public health realm, to name one specific example. And I also think that we in government have realized how important it is to listen to the voices of the citizens as they have come out and exercised their First Amendment rights. And I want to continue to listen, and I want to be responsive to them, and I want to work for the city and the mayor and council and the employees of the city to continue to do a great job for Cincinnatians. Thank you.
Any questions?
Mayor, this is all pretty fresh, but I wondered if you would share with us what's in your head with regard to a timeframe about naming a permanent replacement and whether there would be a national search as there usually is.
Well, at the moment, as I mentioned in my email, we're dealing with a trifecta storm of pandemic, racial injustice, the largest protests in the history of the city, the worst budget deficit in 100 years. And so at the moment, it is about getting through without missing a beat the many things that we are dealing with that are, any one of which would be considered an emergency, and all three to be happening at the same time requires someone of enormous talent, but also, given the moment and the need for institutional knowledge, is perfectly embodied, the combination of those two things in Paula. So in the short term, I don't have time to think about a search. We need to get through the budget. We need to get through Patrick's transition. And thank God he's staying here through the budget, which is wonderful. And we'll deal with that later. And certainly it'll deal with in consultation with City Council. And, as you know, John, I'm only going to be here for another 18 months and a couple weeks. So, that will play into it all as well. And I think it'll play into council's minds as we talk about it. Any other questions?
For the city manager,
Yeah.
I'm interested in the thought process on the decision to leave, because you have been here for so long, and what opportunity you see in the job.
Thought process to leave was really just, I've been in Cincinnati for a while. Cincinnati's home, and I think it's the chance and opportunity to see if I could do this well someplace else. It's also, I was born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica, so the ocean tends to call me, so that plays a role into it as well. But again, it's just a great opportunity, a great chance that I was provided here, and I think it's just trying to see if I could do that somewhere else, but yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm.
And Patrick, if you don't mind, what sticks out in your mind over the last 18 months with this experience? You talked a little bit about it
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning, but I wonder if, as you look back on it, it came in as difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
Just wonder what you take away from
I think the thing that really I take away from this is that, Cincinnati, we got interesting politics and dynamics at City Hall, but whenever it counted, Mayor John Cranley and the City Council did the absolute right thing. When Kyle Plush died and the administration said it's going to cost X to fix City Hall, fix the 911 center, they said, do it and get it done quickly. Everybody remember what happened last year. I mean, so many things have happened so quickly, we forget how near it was that we had the issue with Columbia Parkway. Basically, I think for about a 3-month period, every night I was sending mayor and council an email. Columbia Parkway the landslide is in Columbia Parkway again. The hill is in Columbia Parkway again. And sat down, talked to the mayor, and the first thing city employees tend to say is, "Oh, this always happens, and it's going to take a long time." Well, mayor and council pushed on us to say, "Find a solution," and we said the solution is going to be like $20-something million. I said, "Find a solution. We cannot put Cincinnati in a place where employees cannot get to work, families can't go to the other side of town, and businesses can't get business done because deliveries won't be able to get made." We came up with a plan that cost roughly $17 to $20 million, and council made difficult choices and difficult decisions. The mayor made choices to cut some of his projects that he put forward, and council did the same thing as well. And looking at what went on in the past couple of months with COVID-19 and the loss of revenue, and we went before council and the mayor and said, we need authorization for emergency borrowing that may possibly mortgage and leverage our future so we can ride out this storm. And mayor and council passed it unanimously. Last year, when we were getting ready to meet with the rating agencies, one of their concerns was we weren't investing in our financial reserves as fast as they would like. The mayor, with his leadership, worked with us to develop a waterfall mechanism where we basically committed to a third of the money going into fiscal reserves, a third of the money going into an economic downturn pot, which is pretty brilliant and needed right now in the situation that we're in. And that happened last year before any kind of COVID-19. And then the remaining third was for one-off council priorities for the community. So I think really what I take away from this is that a lot of times people get caught up on the noise, but the mayor and council really care about the city. And when it comes down to it, they always make the absolute right call to make sure we do everything we can for the benefit of our citizens.
Is there a question from the Business Courier?
Yeah, Mayor, tomorrow you said the city council is going to vote. Is Paul going to be interim or acting city manager? I'm not sure I heard or understood that.
I don't. Whatever the lawyers tell me is the proper term, and obviously it's effective only when Patrick actually leaves. So but I think in this, with everything happening, with the pandemic and cases back on the rise nationally, the budget, the cries for racial justice, I just think we got enough on our plate. We need absolute certainty as to what our short-term succession plan is. And so whatever the lawyers tell me is the appropriate wording for acting or interim, I forget which is the right word to use, but whatever it says in the charter. Anything else? Thanks.